HBR's On Leadership book. Particularly, it comes from the chapter What Makes a Leader. Now, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of these. But let's talk about that. Self-awareness, you have to be self-aware of who you are. You have to know that you are coming off as someone who wears your emotion on your sleeves. You have to have self-regulation. So through self-awareness, you already know that about yourself, so you have to have that regulation to be able to understand that you need to pump the brakes, especially when you're feeling frustrated. And if you're feeling frustrated, then remove yourself from the workplace and go burn off that frustration and come back, because the workplace needs to be a place where people are being productive, and people can't be productive when people are frustrated and there's friction and there's tension, and you're showing that you don't want to be bothered. You have to have motivation, and you have to be able to motivate. Through that example that we just read and that experience of the employee, what motivation was built there? Instead, quite the opposite, there was no motivation. Now, we can find motivation in that situation, but that's not what this discussion is about. It's about talking about creating motivation, because it's a part of emotional intelligence. Empathy. A big one is empathy. It's not about feeling bad about the employee as a leader. It's about understanding that your action and how you reacted, what is that going to do to the person who just knocked on your door? Having that empathy, put yourself on that other end. Now, it could be said, well, there was probably a lot of stress on the leader or that leadership that day, or that the supervisor that day. Quite understandable. Yes, 100% there probably was. But again, to be a leader, you have to know how to manage this. If you cannot manage it, then remove yourself from the position, because you're not helping the work productivity that needs to be done. You're hindering it. So a person who has emotional intelligence would have handled that with a lot more finesse, and thus would have created a better outcome, which may have, because we don't know the what ifs, but we can speculate that there would not have been a back away with a shameful feeling of knocking on the door and feeling unwelcome, but rather a supervisor with that intelligence, that emotional intelligence, would have invited, would have then created that rapport and strengthened it and nurtured it to where the employee would have felt amped up, the motivation part, to go do the work faster, quicker. Instead, who knows how long that job got delayed or that assignment got delayed. And last but not least, it talks about social skills. So let's go ahead and read some of the excerpts, or some of the words from this chapter. And it says here, the most effective leaders are alike in a crucial way. They all have a high degree of what has come to be known as emotional intelligence. So in this chapter, it talks about how they went on and created a research, and conducted a research, not created, I'm sorry. They conducted a research, and something that they found through all the leaders is that the effective ones all had emotional intelligence. That's how they were all alike. And so, going back to it, having that sense of understanding of how to deal with your stress and how to manage those frustrations is very, very important, because it is what drives the people who are there working and showing up to work and wanting to go back to work because they're happy. Let's go ahead and look at the next part of this same chapter. It says, people who have a high degree of self-awareness, which is one of the components. Sorry, I went off track there. People who have a high degree of self-awareness recognize how their feelings affect them, other people, and their job performance. So again, we're talking about how, I apologize, my computer logged out. We're talking about how knowing yourself and recognizing what you project during stressful times, during happy times, how you just let people know about what you're feeling. That all is a domino effect. It shifts, it molds, it creates, it deteriorates the job performance. You show up, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. You have to be genuine too, but you show up happy, people will be happy. You let people know you're not approachable, it's not going to be a fun place to work. Because people will just feel like, where can I get answers when I can't go to the one person who should be giving me the answers? Self-awareness. You need to recognize who you are. You need to be able to create that governor of when to pump the brakes and when to tone down the frustration and tone down even the cheerfulness. It can be sometimes overwhelming and you need to slow that down. You have to be that person who can understand who you are and not just let it ooze out of you and expect others to just deal with it. Because ultimately that's what ends up happening is people become compliant and people just don't, they will just respond based off of your mood and they would just get through it. And that's not what a real strong leader provides. A real strong leader provides the opportunity for people to feel comfortable and always show up excited to do the work and be as productive as they can be. Okay, so now let's move on to the next part. Again, we're still on the same chapter, What Makes a Leader, of the Harvard Business Review on leadership. People who are in control of their feelings and impulses are able to create an environment of trust and fairness. Fewer bad moods at the top mean fewer throughout the organization. Let's talk about that. So fewer bad moods at the top, which trickles its way down because all messages, all communication start from one point, which is at the top, and it will make its way down. And if that message is conveyed with frustration, then that's only going to continue to create frustration and that awareness of an unhealthy place to be a part of and work in. So I go back and I use unhealthy because we're talking about this individual here who all this person was seeking was some supplies to be able to complete a task, do their job right. And when they went to go ask for it, the message that they received upon knocking on that door was an eye roll, which let them know, get out of here, which then translates to a bad mood on that person's behalf because either A, they have to go spend their own money, or B, they can't get the job done as quickly and as efficiently because they weren't able to get that communication through. And now going back to the supervisor who initially gave the eye roll, we don't know what eye roll that person got from their superior above them, assuming that there's a superior above them. So again, it all trickles down. It all goes downward. fewer bad moods at the top mean fewer throughout the organization. Wow, that is very good words to really reflect upon there. So let's move on to the next one. Again, sticking with HBR on leadership, and we're looking at what makes a leader. Empathy means empathy means thoughtfully considering employees' feelings along with other factors and process of making intelligent decisions. Empathy means thoughtfully considering employees' feelings along with other factors in the process of making intelligent decisions. Can we say that the eye rolling was an intelligent decision? I'm going to go out there and say it wasn't an intelligent move. The leadership wasn't thinking about the employee and how they may feel. So we need to always keep ourselves grounded and remember that we're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with robots. And what we let them know through our body language without speaking is still just as hurtful and damaging or unproductive or uninspiring as speaking. I don't want you here. Come back. You're bothering me. Just because it wasn't said doesn't mean it didn't send the message. It probably sent, not probably, it did send a stronger message than if it would have just verbally been told to the employee, please leave. I don't have time for you right now. So, in looking at one last component here, it's called social skills, which is what HBR talks about in what makes a leader as one of its components. Social skills is the culmination of other dimensions of emotional intelligence. People tend to be very effective at managing relationships when they can understand and control their own emotions and can empathize with the feeling of others. Right there. It says that. Exactly what we've been talking about. People tend to be very effective at managing relationships. A workplace environment is all relationships. That's all it is. It's one big relationship. You have a relationship with your employees. You have a relationship with your superiors. You have a relationship with the next department. And you need to be able to inspire, and you need to be able to keep them, and you need to be able to manage all of them. Different personalities. You need to be able to just cooperate. And that's all being social and having good social skills. But in those social skills, you need to have emotional intelligence. When they can understand and control their own emotions and can empathize with their feelings. So when you are able to understand yourself and be able to know and control your own emotions, and at the same time empathize that with others and how they may feel and how they may react to things, that's when you're most effective. Again, being a leader is not just a title, it's a big responsibility. And in seeing that, it's never too late to become a great leader. It's just really going back and really understanding more about leadership and knowing where it needs to be developed and worked on. It's like anything else. It has to be a practice that's always tuned and refined and then retuned. So I want to just talk about and break down the ripple effect from the eye roll incident. So let's talk about this. Employee morale was lowered. It may have been lowered by a lot. It may have been lowered by a very tiny amount. But nevertheless, even if it was for a fraction of a second, it was still